I never thought moving into my dream home would turn into a battle, but here I was, standing in my own yard, staring at something that wasn't supposed to be there. A camera, shiny, black, and fixed high up on a pole, pointed straight at my backyard. I frowned, stepping closer. It wasn't mine. I hadn't installed any cameras. So who did? I had moved into this quiet, suburban neighborhood only 3 months ago. The place was perfect, spacious, peaceful, and far from the chaos of the city. I had worked years to afford this house, and finally, it was mine. But I had one problem. The Homeowners Association. At first, I thought the HOA was just a harmless community organization that handled basic neighborhood rules. But I quickly realized that some of the board members, especially Karen, had way too much power. She was the self-appointed guardian of the neighborhood, always watching, always complaining, and always making sure everyone followed her ridiculous rules. I had already clashed with her twice. Once, because my grass was apparently too tall by half an inch. The second time, because I had parked my car facing the wrong direction in my own driveway. But this? This was a new level of crazy. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of the camera. I needed answers. Was someone spying on me? I turned and marched straight toward the HOA office, my heart pounding. When I got there, Karen was sitting behind a desk, typing away on her laptop like she was running a Fortune 500 company. She glanced up, her eyes narrowing as soon as she saw me. "Something I can help you with?" she asked, her tone dripping with fake politeness. I held up my phone, showing her the picture. "Did you install this camera in my yard?" Her lips curled into a tight smile. "Oh, that's just part of the new HOA security measures." My jaw tightened. "You put a camera in my yard without asking me?" Karen sighed, like she was dealing with a child. "It's for the safety of the community. We need to keep an eye on things. You don't have anything to hide, do you?" I felt my blood pressure spike. "That's not the point. This is my property. You can't just install surveillance equipment on someone else's land." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Well, actually, if you check the HOA bylaws, it clearly states that we have the right to install security cameras in common areas. And since your backyard is visible from the street, it falls under that category." I gritted my teeth. "That's ridiculous. My backyard is not a common area. That camera is violating my privacy, and I want it taken down. Immediately." Karen's smile didn't fade. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen. But feel free to file a complaint." I clenched my fists. This woman thought she could just steamroll me. Fine. If she wanted a fight, she was about to get one. That I stormed back home, my frustration boiling over. Karen had no right to put that camera in my yard, and her smug attitude made it clear that she wasn't planning on taking it down anytime soon. I wasn't about to let her invade my privacy like this. Time to do some research. I sat down at my computer and started digging into the HOA bylaws. Karen had claimed that they had the right to install security cameras in common areas. But my backyard? No way that counted as a common area. I scrolled through pages of legal jargon until I found something interesting. Section 5.2, Common areas include sidewalks, parks, shared gardens, and public property maintained by the HOA. Privately owned yards, driveways, and enclosed areas are not considered common spaces. Gotcha. I smirked, feeling a surge of confidence. The bylaws were on my side. That camera had no legal reason to be there. But I wasn't done yet. I checked the local privacy laws, just to be sure. And there it was. Unauthorized surveillance on private property was illegal unless the owner gave explicit consent. That meant Karen had not only broken HOA rules but also state law. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with my next move. I could take this straight to the HOA board, but knowing Karen, she probably had them wrapped around her finger. No, I needed something stronger, something that forced their hand. Before I could plan my next steps, my phone buzzed. A text from my next-door neighbor, Mark. "Hey, man. Have you seen the new cameras? I just noticed one pointing at my driveway." Wait. Karen had installed more? I quickly replied, "Yeah. There's one in my yard too." "Did they ask you before putting it up?" Mark: "Nope. And I'm not okay with it. Let's talk." Minutes later, Mark was at my doorstep, shaking his head. "This is getting out of hand. I already had issues with Karen last year when she tried to fine me for having a non-approved fence color. Now she's installing cameras? She's completely out of control." "She told me it's for community security," I said, rolling my eyes. "But I checked the HOA rules. They don't have the right to do this." Mark frowned. "So what do we do? Can we just take them down?" I hesitated. "I mean, we could, but Karen would just replace them and probably hit us with some kind of HOA violation." Mark sighed. "Yeah, that sounds like her. But we can't just let this slide. This is a violation of privacy. Who even has access to the footage?" That was a damn good question. Karen had never mentioned who controlled the cameras. Did she have a direct feed? Were they stored on some HOA-controlled server? Or worse, did she have some private access to spy on homeowners? A cold realization settled over me. "I need to check something," I muttered, heading back inside. Mark followed as I grabbed my laptop and started looking up the camera brand Karen had installed. A quick search led me to the manufacturer's website, and after a little more digging, I found something shocking. These cameras were remote accessible. That meant whoever installed them could watch the footage live from anywhere: phone, tablet, computer. And guess what? Only the installer had full control over the footage. Which meant Karen had been watching my backyard in real time. Mark cursed under his breath. "This is insane. She's literally spying on people. How is this even legal?" "It's not," I said through gritted teeth. "And I'm about to prove it." I needed proof, something undeniable that would not only expose Karen's overreach but force the HOA to act. If I could get access to the footage, I'd have solid evidence. There was only one way to find out. I grabbed a ladder and headed to the backyard. If Karen had access, I needed to see what she was seeing. Time to turn the tables that I climbed the ladder, my heart pounding as I reached for the camera. If I could access its settings, I might be able to confirm that Karen had remote access. But the moment my fingers touched the device, a loud voice rang out from behind me. "Step away from that camera, now." I nearly lost my balance as I turned to see Karen standing at the edge of my yard, arms crossed, a self-satisfied smirk on her face. She was holding her phone up like she was recording me. "That camera is HOA property," she snapped. "Tampering with it is a violation. I can have you fined for this." I climbed down, keeping my cool. "Oh really?" "Because according to HOA bylaws, my backyard isn't a common area. Which means you had no right to install this here in the first place." Her smirk twitched, but she didn't back down. "It's for security. The board approved it." "Did the board approve giving you exclusive access to the footage?" I shot back. That wiped the smug look off her face. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said quickly, but the way her eyes darted told me I'd hit a nerve. I folded my arms. "Oh, I think you do. These cameras are remote accessible. Which means someone has control over them." I checked the brand. "Only the installer has full access to the footage." "That's you, isn't it?" She pressed her lips into a thin line. That information is confidential. Not anymore, I said, holding up my phone. Because I recorded this whole conversation. Including you admitting the cameras are HOA property, which means the entire board is responsible for spying on homeowners. How do you think the other residents will feel about that? Karen's face turned red. You wouldn't, I absolutely would. Silence stretched between us. Mark, who had been quietly watching, finally spoke up. You really crossed a line, Karen. This isn't just some HOA rule, this is illegal surveillance. You can't spy on homeowners. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Karen's jaw tightened. You don't understand. We have had incidents in this neighborhood. Suspicious activity. I was only trying to protect, cut the crap, I interrupted. If that were true, the footage would be accessible to all homeowners, not just you. She said nothing. I took a step closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to remove that camera from my yard today. And then, you're going to send a notice to every homeowner telling them exactly who has access to the camera footage. If you don't, I'll send this recording to every lawyer, news station, and Facebook group in town. And I guarantee you, the HOA will have a lawsuit on its hands by the end of the week. Karen's face was unreadable for a long moment. Then, finally, she huffed. Fine. I'll look into it. Not good enough, I said. Take the camera down. Now. Mark stepped forward. And the one in my yard too. Karen's hands clenched into fists, but she knew she was trapped. She had no legal ground to stand on. Fine, she hissed. But if something happens because we don't have security, that's on you. I smirked. I'll take my chances. Without another word, she turned and stormed off. Mark let out a low whistle. Man, that was satisfying. I exhaled, feeling the adrenaline fade. She's not done. People like her don't back down that easily. I was right. Because the next morning, I got a notice from the HOA in my mailbox. And this time, Karen wasn't just threatening fines. She was threatening to sue me. The letter sat in my hands, crisp and official looking, stamped with the HOA logo at the top. I tore it open, my eyes scanning the words. Dear homeowner, it has come to our attention that you have interfered with HOA security measures and have engaged in behavior that disrupts community operations. Under Section 8.3 of the HOA agreement, any homeowner found tampering with HOA property may face fines up to $5,000 and potential legal action. You are hereby instructed to cease further interference with HOA policies immediately. Failure to comply will result in additional penalties, up to and including legal proceedings. Sincerely, Karen L. HOA President. I clenched my jaw. This was pure intimidation. I grabbed my phone and called Mark. You get one of these? Yup, he said. Karen's trying to scare us. I exhaled. She's bluffing. She knows she broke the law. We just need to prove it. There was only one way to do that. I needed to get access to the HOA cameras. The plan later that evening, I met up with Mark at his place. We sat at his kitchen table, laptops open, cups of coffee untouched beside us. So, how do we do this? Mark asked. I pulled up the camera manufacturer's website again. The cameras are all linked to an admin account. If we can get into that account, we can see who's accessing the footage. Mark raised an eyebrow. And how do we get the login? I smirked. We don't. We make Karen give it to us. Mark leaned back. I'm listening. I explained my plan. If Karen thought she had complete control, she'd slip up. All we needed was to push her into revealing where she stored the footage. And I had just the way to do it. The setup the next morning, I took a different approach. Instead of going on the offensive, I decided to act like I was backing down. I walked up to Karen's office in the HOA building and knocked on the door. She looked up from her computer, clearly surprised. "What do you want?" I forced a small sigh. "Look, I don't want to fight. I just want to understand how this is supposed to work." She raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning, if the cameras are actually for security, I want to see them in action." She stiffened. "That's not how it works." "But why?" I pressed. "If the HOA is monitoring for safety, shouldn't homeowners have access to the footage? What if something happens?" Karen tapped her fingers on the desk, her expression unreadable. "The board has designated me as the point of contact. I oversee security concerns." There it was. "Oversee?" I repeated. "So that means you have access to all the footage?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Of course. Even live feeds?" Her lips pressed together. She knew where this was going. "Karen," I said, keeping my voice even. "If the HOA gets sued over illegal surveillance, you'll be personally liable. This isn't just about bylaws anymore. It's a privacy violation. If you don't want this to get worse, you need to be honest with me." Her eyes flickered with something, maybe doubt, maybe fear. Then she folded her arms. "What do you want?" "Bingo. I want proof that this isn't just you spying on homeowners." I leaned forward slightly. "Show me the security system." She hesitated. Then, finally, she turned her laptop around. My stomach twisted as I saw the screen. There they were, multiple live camera feeds. Karen clicked through them. Every camera had timestamps, saved recordings, and a list of users who accessed them. And there was the proof I needed. Karen was the only one who had ever logged in. No HOA board members. No community oversight. Just Karen, watching homeowners whenever she wanted. "You satisfied now?" she asked, her voice tense. I didn't answer. Instead, I calmly pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of the screen. "Hey," she barked, reaching for the laptop. Too late. I stepped back. "I have what I need." Karen shot up from her chair. "You can't use that." I smirked. "We'll see about that." I turned and walked out, leaving Karen fuming behind her desk. I had the evidence. Now, it was time to end this. I didn't waste a second. As soon as I got home, I sent the photo of Karen's laptop screen to Mark. "Mark, holy crap. She's the only one with access?" "Me, yep. And I have proof." "Mark, that's illegal as hell." "What's next?" I already knew. This wasn't just an HOA problem anymore. Karen had been illegally spying on homeowners and lying about it. She needed to be held accountable. The first thing I did was contact a local attorney. I explained everything, showed him the HOA bylaws, state privacy laws, and the evidence I had. He was stunned. "You've got an open and shut case," he told me. "This is a major privacy violation. The HOA can't authorize surveillance on private property without consent. Karen is personally responsible for this." "Good," I said. "Because I want her to pay for what she did." He nodded. "We can file a formal cease and desist, followed by a lawsuit for invasion of privacy. She could be fined heavily, and depending on how many homeowners were affected, there could be a class action lawsuit." Perfect. Next, I took it to the homeowners. I printed out everything. The HOA bylaws, the privacy laws, and screenshots of Karen's personal access to the cameras, and posted them on the community bulletin board. Then, I sent an anonymous email to all the homeowners with the subject line, HOA president spying on you, proof attached. Within an hour, my phone exploded with messages. What the hell? I never agreed to this. I knew Karen was shady, but this is next level. We need a meeting. Now. The final HOA showdown that evening, a crowd gathered at the HOA meeting, more homeowners than I'd ever seen before. The tension in the room was thick. Karen sat at the front, trying to maintain her usual fake confidence, but she looked nervous. I stood up, holding my phone. Karen, do you want to explain why you were the only person with access to the HOA security cameras? She forced a laugh. That's ridiculous. I turned my phone around, projecting the image of her laptop screen on the meeting room wall. Silence. Then, the room erupted. People shouted over each other. You've been watching us? You put cameras on my property? I want her out. Karen's face went pale. Wait. This is a misunderstanding. I folded my arms. Then explain why you lied about security access. Explain why only you had control of the footage. Explain why you spied on us. She stammered, her hands shaking. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe. A homeowner in the back yelled, "That's not your job. You're not a cop, Karen." The HOA board members were visibly furious. They looked at each other, whispering. Then, the HOA vice president stood up and turned to the crowd. As of now, Karen is officially removed as HOA president. The room cheered. Karen jumped up from her chair. You can't do this. The vice president glared at her. You violated state law. We'll be holding a formal review, and if necessary, we'll be turning this over to the authorities. Mark leaned over and whispered, "Damn. She's done." Karen's face twisted with rage. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. And just like that, she was gone. The aftermath: the HOA immediately started removing all the cameras Karen had installed. A few weeks later, she was hit with multiple lawsuits, including one from me. She tried to fight back, but she had no defense. She ended up paying thousands in legal fees and fines. And the best part? She moved out of the neighborhood. With Karen gone, the HOA actually became reasonable. No more petty fines. No more power-hungry leadership. The neighborhood finally felt like a place I wanted to live. One afternoon, Mark and I were having a beer in my backyard. "Man," he said, raising his bottle. "To taking down the HOA dictator." I laughed and clinked my bottle against his. Damn right. We took a sip, enjoying the privacy we'd fought so hard for. No more cameras. No more Karen. Just peace. And that? That was worth every second of the battle.